And now for a reading from The Shop Before Life by Neil Hughes. Fortunately, there is one species that is simpler than potatoes. Humans.
Hi everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Reading Room Ruffians, your favorite library podcast. We discuss books we've read, tell you about our upcoming programs, and throw a few guest speakers in for some flavor. We are coming to you from our public library in Jackson County, West Virginia. This is Mallory, your ADHD queen, and I'm joined by my spicy BFF, Ariel.
What's up, my home skillets?
Our supreme overlord, Carla.
As it should be.
And coming in hot from Seattle, Washington, we have this nerd, Zach.
Hi everyone, West Coast, Best Coast.
Yeah!
Gross. We're going to be taking a deep dive into The Kiss of Deception by Mary E. Pearson. Before we get started on that, we're going to touch on some upcoming programs in the library. Remind you that T.A. Spencer will be here in 2 episodes. And is there anything else we wanted to discuss?
I think we might just give like a brief overview of the books that are coming up after our author comes on.
That sounds good. Okay, so upcoming programs. We really just have summer reading program.
Yeah.
But we also, is Amy doing bingo for books or anything?
I don't think
She
so.
did that-
She has
she
not
did that last
mentioned
week.
anything to me about that.
It'll
so-
probably be after summer reading. She'll start that again.
Yeah, that sounds about right. So yeah, we're still doing summer reading program.
It actually will be starting this week coming.
Mm-hmm.
When this episode's posted, it'll be that week that we're starting summer reading.
Perfect.
We're already planning minicon for next year.
Yeah, someone thinks that their world's going to be better than ours, and they're just wrong.
It
False.
is. It is. I have the experience.
Yeah, but see, I'm the newer version of you. So I am like Carla 2.0, which is obviously better.
Got all those software updates and everything.
Yup.
I'm probably still working on what binary or something.
Oh my gosh.
Okay, well, do we want to go ahead and get into our deep dive?
Please.
Yes, let's talk about the Smooch of Lies.
Okay, so whenever I first read this book, if you remember from whenever I first talked about it last episode?
I think so.
Yeah, wow. I had originally read the preface book, so it was a prequel, I guess, about Morgan, who was the first daughter. And that was a pretty interesting read. It was really short, so, you didn't get a whole lot of background information or anything like that. But so I finally decided to read this book, and I don't know why, it just really sucked me all the way in. And I think mostly because I spent the entire book absolutely positive I knew who was who, like convinced. And I think I even messaged you a couple of times, like, I don't know who is who, but I think I do, but I don't, but I do.
Yeah, I was like, what is she even talking about?
Yeah.
Because I hadn't read it by then. I was like, okay. I'm pretty sure that's what I replied to you. I was like, okay.
Yeah.
A warning, there will be spoilers in this because I know I'm not going to be able to talk about it without giving stuff away.
Yeah.
So read the book and then come back.
Absolutely. This one I think would be worth it.
Before we get too much further in, we should probably do a brief summary of what actually happens in this book and what is the idea. So that I know people don't always read the books because I listen to a book podcast. I never read any of the books, but I like hearing them talk about it. So anybody want to give a nice little summary?
I can read the synopsis.
Yeah, a synopsis or something like that.
Okay. A princess must find her place in a reborn world. She flees on her wedding day. She steals ancient documents from the Chancellor's secret collection. She is pursued by bounty hunters sent by her own father. She is Princess Leah, 17, first daughter of the House of Morgan. The kingdom of Morgan is steeped in tradition and the stories of a bygone world. But some traditions Leah can't abide, like having to marry someone she's never met to secure a political alliance. Fed up and ready for a new life, Leah flees to a distant village on the morning of her wedding. She settles in among the common folk, intrigued when 2 mysterious and handsome strangers arrive. and unaware that one of them is the jilted prince and the other an assassin sent to kill her. Deceptions swirl, and Leah finds herself on the brink of unlocking perilous secrets that may unravel her world, even if she feels herself falling in love.
Okay, so the rough conceit of this book, just for everybody else who doesn't know, they change their names when they first, or they give some like pseudonyms when they first meet the main character Leah. So you're not sure which one is which. And every time you get a POV chapter from one of them, it is vague enough that you're not entirely sure who is who. If they give the names of the character, not like, the title of the assassin or the prince, right? So it's a weird little thing, and it's a neat way to do a book, but
I liked that. I don't think that I've read a book that did that, really.
I was sure I knew it was.
Yeah.
And argued with Ariel on the way in this morning.
Yeah, she did.
Because I didn't get it finished in time. And I was like, you're just going to have to sum up the end of it because I didn't get done. And she was telling me, and I was like, there is no way. I remember reading on those chapters, and I went back and looked, and I had just assumed.
Yeah, no, it's vague enough. Yeah.
Yeah, I skimmed through on my Kindle this time and took notes because I felt a little bit crazy. I was like, does this not...
See, when she first told me, because we talked yesterday, and she went ahead and told me that the people I thought they were not who I thought they were.
Yeah.
Granted, I was almost halfway through the book, so like the realization that the people weren't who they said they were was like coming right up. So it wasn't like a huge spoiler or anything like that. I was like, I don't think that's right. I was like, I'm pretty sure the author just got confused. And by the end of it, she couldn't remember who was who. So she just decided.
I sort of thought the same sort of thing. I think there's a couple reasons why you think this. The POV chapters are vague enough, and I think the author sort of pushes you towards thinking one thing instead of the other. Also, the prince's fake name is Rafe, R-A-F-E, which I thought was Wraith for the longest time, because it sounds like it on the audiobook. And I was like, Wraith, that's like a very, that's a very assassin-y type name, right?
See, that's what I thought his name was too, because I didn't read
in.
it. I listened, so that's what I thought it was.
Well, the only reason I knew how it was spelled is because I looked it up later, and I was like, oh, they've been saying Wraith this whole time, not Wraith.
Yeah.
You can tell the difference in what I just said there, Wraith versus Wraith. It sounds exactly the same. So I think that was like a subtle little... way of manipulating you into it. But the reason I figured it out beforehand, I was like, okay, she is pushing me so hard, it feels like, to assume that Rafe is the assassin. That's definitely the prince. It's gotta be. Because I was basically metagaming the book, right? I was like, the author is going to want a nice juicy twist, but I'm not getting twisted here. I know.
Yeah, that's honestly not the kind of twist I was expecting, and I don't know why. I actually am a pretty good person to dupe in books. I like to try and figure stuff out. I can call the ending of most TV shows. I know who did it on like murder shows, all of that stuff. But for some reason, I think I just actually let my brain shut up while I'm reading or listening to a book. So I'm usually fairly surprised whenever something happens. And then if I ever go back and reread it, I'm like, well, this is obvious. How did I not pick this up the first time around?
I do exactly the same thing. I am in that moment without thinking, what's coming next.
I'm going to be honest. I kind of wanted Rafe to be the assassin.
I thought it would have been
I'm kind of glad he was the prince because he was my favorite.
I liked him. He was my favorite, but I wanted him to be the assassin so, like, the prince could just be, like,
it's kind of like a whatever
not nice
kind of guy.
word. Not crazy about him. He's a little, anger issues, whatnot. And then the assassin, would like, I don't know, fall in love and decide that he didn't want to murder her. And then, that's a great epic tale that he has to betray his whole country to save her and all that. That sounds so much better to me. That's what I like.
It kind of does happen, but
it's basically what happens.
Also.
No, it's not basically what happens.
No, he does fall in love with her. I mean, they say that explicitly in the book, and he does save her from, I guess, himself. I mean, it's not the best.
He says specifically that his country or kingdom or whatever it is comes first, no matter what.
That's what he says, but then he also does, like, the light treason at that one point where he buries the bodies.
Yeah, but it's not just him.
Yeah.
It's actually, like other people.
He does definitely start off a light treason there. Either way. I think it would have been more interesting if Rafe was the assassin. Would have been a better sort of thing.
I would have liked it better, but I mean, I'm okay with it being the prince, but still,
it's a lot more. It's cleaner, I think, that way.
I liked it better.
Okay, so what do we think
That's
about
because
the
you
book
didn't
overall?
want him to be the bad guy.
I
You
did
did
not
not like
want
the
him to be
idea of her liking the bad guy.
No, I didn't.
And I'm all like, give me the bad guy. Give me
This is the old
morally
school
gray
versus
character.
The new school.
I honestly,
Old school is better.
I was upset either way that she was like falling for either of them, because I was just like, give me one princess who's like, no, F all y'all, I'm not doing it.
Well, see, I love stories like that
And
too.
she kind of
She still
is
kind
that,
of does that, yeah.
but also, and as the series progresses, it gets so much more intense. I know book 2 ends on an absolute WTF. I had to immediately go and check out book 3. Like, there was no stopping whatsoever for me. And a matter of fact, whenever I finished the book, I'm pretty sure my review says in all caps, "What do you mean?"
Yeah, it does. It does. I remember seeing that.
but yeah, the series is fantastic, and I told them pretty much nobody is happy in this book series, like pretty much the whole time. And so like there are elements of romance, but there's a lot of action, there's a lot of really heavy stuff going on. And I don't know, it has kind of everything for me. It checks all of my boxes.
Okay, what do we think about the fact that her brother got murdered in front of her?
Oh my gosh. Listen.
That part
when
was
I tell
pretty
you guys
rough.
I cried.
Dude, you know, I didn't cry at that point. Like, I felt really bad for her. I
Yeah.
cried when she went and killed the horse.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I cried then too.
Because I was like,
Oh man.
that poor child.
Yeah.
Oh.
And the fact, oh man, listen, the whole thing. But yeah, that.
Okay, for her brother getting murdered, because for those who have not read it and you're still listening, which crazy sauce that you're doing that. Her brother's wife and unborn child got murdered in a skirmish with the barbarians that have captured Leah, right? So
they're on the trail from Teravan to Venda, and at one point, I think they're pretty close.
yeah, they are very close.
And they're up on a pretty big steep hill, and she sees her brother's, what's the word? Her brother's platoon, yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Squad, yeah, maybe.
There's like 30 guys on
Yeah.
with her brother, and then there's this army of like 200 of the Vendans, or barbarians as the other people call them.
Yeah. So she basically watches her brother get murdered by these barbarians. And I mean, it was heartbreaking for her, but I wasn't nearly as sad about it because her brother was so distraught over losing his wife and his, child, that I was like, well, at least he's not suffering, that's not going to come up later in the book or later in the other books, that we're going to see where she's like trying to help her brother. And because I feel like that would be more heartbreaking.
Yeah.
To watch her brother just essentially destroy himself.
I mean, it really was heartbreaking for her whenever she found him.
I know.
And he basically just wasn't him anymore.
Yeah.
So, and I think that was also a big part of why he died the way he did, because he didn't let them come to him. He went to them and absolutely went out swinging. And it was just, and then, in Venda, they don't bury anybody that they kill. And she is a captive. And she's like, I don't care. I'm burying all of them, every last one of them. And the captain is essentially like, well, you're doing it by yourself. We're not helping. It's treason to help. And I think by the time she has the first grave dug, quite a few soldiers step in and start digging holes.
No. It was by the third grave.
The third one?
She had dug for 7 hours burying people.
Yeah.
Because they even said that, she buried her brother first, which, makes sense. Obviously, she's going to do that. But the second person she buries, they had lost their arm, and she had spent time looking for it, and she found it underneath a horse. So she got the arm, laid it on their chest, wrapped them up, and buried them. But he was like, the captain of the army was like, if she wants to, bury them all, that's fine. He wasn't going to help though. And then when people started helping, some of the people who weren't going to help were going to intervene. And the captain's like, no, if they want to dig holes, let them. I don't want to be here all night.
Yeah. And essentially how they loopholed themselves out of treason was, we're digging holes. What she does after that is not our business.
Yeah, they weren't explicitly burying people, was the idea.
Yeah,
that's the light treason that Zach was talking about.
Yeah.
Just some light seasoning of treason there.
Just a little sprinkle.
Yeah. Ugh. Yeah, that was pretty hard. And There were actually, I want to say, the horse was the next big part for me,
Oh,
too.
that killed me. That one killed me. Because it's just, the original group of barbarians that capture Leah are Caden, who's the assassin who, like, loves her, and, like, 4 of his men, and one of the men is not a man at all. It's a boy.
Yeah.
Like, I can't remember how old. I was going to say, but
he's, like, not even a teenager yet.
Yeah, I thought he was pretty young. I was guessing 11, but I wasn't sure.
I think it actually says he's 12.
I think it says 12 in there.
Okay, well, I couldn't remember. I just knew it was around that age. But he's really good with animals and stuff like that. Like, it talks about how when they're stopping at some camp, he, like, you know, tends to the horses and he tends to these wolves and stuff like that. So, he's just really animal oriented, I guess. And the horse he's riding starts to go lame. And it's a horse that he has raised since it was a foal. Mm-hmm. And it eventually gets to the point where the horse can't continue anymore. And they're like, you're going to have to, you know, put it down. And he just, like, stares at the knife. Like, he's like, I can't do this. And I loved when she was like, maybe the only favor he's had is someone showing him a little bit of compassion.
Yep.
And I was like, oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Tell him.
She was a badass.
Feisty.
She was pretty good.
I absolutely loved her as a character. There were times when I was just like, please stop. But, I mean, why? I don't know.
I mean, she's only, what? She's 17 in the book?
Yeah.
So she's dumb. Like, I mean, all 17-year-olds are dumb. But she's pretty confident, I think, overall. And she is, like, determined and...
Especially for living, like, a life as a princess, you know?
Oh, yeah,
and she's a good person.
Yeah. She's definitely not the
spoiled
typical...
brat.
Yeah.
And I think having the older brothers helps with that, too, though.
Yeah.
Definitely.
But also her having Pauline. Pauline was amazing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. We talk about a ride or die.
Yeah.
I loved Pauline the whole time.
Yeah, she was amazing. I liked her. And I liked, was it Birdie?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah. I loved Birdie.
Birdie, the old lady?
Yeah, the old lady.
I actually love Gwyneth and Birdie as well.
Okay.
They're such a good little band of women.
They do not say whether Gwyneth and that child are related in that book, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I want to, well, I know they're related, but I got that. Yeah. But I'm trying to decide whether I think it's her daughter and it's her parents taking care of her daughter, or if it's her younger sister. But I'm leaning towards daughter.
I think
it's got to be daughter.
That's what I'm definitely leaning towards that.
She's clearly from, at least at some point, or has been to, what's the main city called that
Morgan?
Leah's from? Morgan,
Civica?
yeah. Civica is Civica is the city, and then is it the country is Morgan?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. So she's clearly been there at some point, right? I was just like metagaming for the next book if I ever read it. Which, I mean, I don't know. This book was like kind of, I'm going to say it, not much happens in this book until like the last 30% of it.
Yeah, it's like a cute little story for the first. It's 70%,
pleasant,
you know.
It's
fun.
Yeah, it's not super because she does get to be happy for a pretty decent amount of time, and you think like if you're being hunted by an assassin, you wouldn't even get that much, which is just kind of like pretty cool. And yeah, so there isn't a whole lot that happens in the book. It's very nice. And then it just kind of pops off. And I will be really honest, it does not stop until the 3rd book. Like the next 2 books are just like so much unfolds, so much links together that you wouldn't even expect. And yeah, there were a bunch of things in the first book that I highlighted that was like, oh my gosh, this comes in right here at the part in the book. And it was crazy. There's no way that she wrote just one of these books. She had to have written all 3 at once. Like, I don't know. That was insane to me how intricately woven they were.
Though the way it seemed like at where this one ended, it seemed like she had written a good chunk of the next one and just like was like, oh, this book is too long. I need to cut it up. Because it's like 500 pages, right? It's a longish book.
Yeah, it is 480 some because I only got halfway through.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would not be surprised if it was something like she's been working on this project for a long time and then she goes to submit to like, you know, an editor and then they're like, this is way too, nobody's reading this book, girl. Who do you think you are, Stephen King? You're writing the stand over here?
Like,
let's chop this up a bit.
Had to do with peace talks. And,
because it was so long.
That one was literally one book he had to cut in half. Yeah.
But I would sit and read the entire book, though.
I would, too. But the only he said that his publishers were like, it's going to be a $60 book. Like, there's no way. And he was like, fine, got it in half.
I mean, I guess I get that,
but
I'd still spend $60 to read it.
Same. So. Jim Butcher is worth it.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Like, not even... I actually just recently got his book, The Law.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, that's a good one. I read that one.
Yeah, well, it was... I waited for it to go on sale because it felt like $20-something for a 3-hour book was not worth it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I would listen to it on Audible, so.
Yeah, I got it on Audible, but I just straight up bought it because it was cheaper than a credit. Anyway, not important. Getting off track. Did you guys like this book? I don't know if I like this book. I liked it somewhat.
I liked it, but I don't know if I would read the other two right now.
That's fair.
I think based on this book, I don't think I would read the other two right now because they set up a bunch of stuff, but they didn't give me enough, I don't think, meat to really get into like the world much, and then like the gifts and stuff like that. If they would give me just like a little bit more, I think maybe like put this traveling part in 50% of the way through the book, and then once you get to the end of it, it's not just when she meets Rafe again. It's like a little bit after that, something like that.
Yeah.
You know, just give me a little bit more juice. I think it would have been better.
I could stop this book right here, make up my own ending, and be fine.
Yeah.
Like, it would not, like, I have no, like, curiosity where I'm like, oh, I gotta read the second book now.
Oh, man, I cannot relate. I had so many questions, mainly because in this book, yeah, she does mention her mom always telling her that she was not like sensing a gift. It was just the wind. It was just this or that. And the further she got in, she kind of, and especially once she met the vagabonds and...
Oh, dude, I like them a lot.
Me too. I absolutely loved them. And whenever she started talking with that old woman and she was like, your gift isn't just a knowing. Like, you can know more than just the future. You can know like all kinds of different things, and went into, you know, how she like thieves stuff, how she's a thief. That's part of your knowing. And the more you pay attention to everything that you do know, you start to know more. And so it was just kind of, she had her own revelations, like,
I'm gonna
man.
be honest. Through that entire book, when she has those like moments where it's like a voice tells her to stop, or I'm like, how are you this dumb?
Yeah.
That is obviously your gift. Why are you being stupid?
Because she's been told her whole life that doesn't exist.
It's still, I mean,
yeah.
that drove me crazy because I was like,
drove me nuts
I
too.
will smack you.
But the further I got into it, the more I realized that her mom straight up did tell her to ignore everything that she was supposed to have. Yeah. So she really thought that she didn't have any sort of gift. And like her affinity for languages, I thought was really cool too. Mm-hmm. So essentially she's, I want to say, smarter than the grand scholar. And
dude, that guy was awful.
Oof. And yeah, I had so many questions. I was like, I've got to know if we find out what her mom actually did, like what's going on here. Because it's too much for me. I think hyper-focused, which is fine. Like, I'm totally fine with it.
I have a couple other books that I want to read before.
Yeah.
Does this, okay, in this one, since I didn't get it finished, do they deal with those books that she stole at all?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Okay, because that's what I was like interested in that. But I don't
that's
remember
really
her
interesting
mom
too.
telling her that she didn't have stuff or repeating it. I don't remember that.
That was more brought up when she was with the vagabonds.
Yeah, like memories of
so
her. Yeah, of her
because
memories.
the old lady there is like, you know, you have to practice, you have to use it, or your skill goes away, essentially.
Mm-hmm.
And she has this moment where she remembers her mom telling her that, oh no, it's not that, it's this.
I'll probably finish this one, but I don't know how. I'm having trouble keeping up with our reading as it is.
Yeah.
Well, the only school and work and, you know,
the only reason I finished this one is because I listened to the audiobook at 2.5 speed.
Because we did, I literally went to Parkersburg because we didn't have a copy. We do now, but we didn't have a copy, and picked up the audiobook and just a physical copy of the book.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I got to 75% last night around 9:00, and I was listening at 2.0 speed, and I was like, I'm not staying up for another 3 hours. So I sped it up to like 2.5, and I was done with it by 11. So it cut me down an hour, and I was like, all right, cool. I got it done.
Any other thoughts?
I like the idea of the gifts just in general. It seems kind of neat since at least when they were with the vagabonds, they seem to have a better understanding of just how they work, sort of, or where they come from. And It seems like not just this knowing thing happens, and it's not limited to the first daughters, and it's all this stuff. It's just, for example,
well, they do say at the beginning that every now and then it'll be a man or not the first daughter that ends up with the gift. So,
but like, for example, they used, what's his name, the kid,
Eben.
I was going to call him Geeb or something. I was like, his name's not Geeb. That's a great name, though. Geeb. Anyway, so Eben is like, his gift, right, is this affinity for animals, right?
Yeah.
And that's just one of the ways it can manifest. And they keep sort of pushing that it's not magic. It's something that you're like, you just become more attuned with your surroundings or nature or whatever, and just like sort of listen or feel better than like just the average person, right? So you get this sort of like almost precognitive type stuff in the way that Leah does when she, sees, gets this foreboding that's happening, or I guess it doesn't really explain how she can sort of hear Rafe talking to her occasionally because he's like hundreds of miles away or whatever.
You should have seen Mallory's face.
Unless they got like some weird psychic connection or something like that. But it sort of goes against like the idea of it being more just like a natural thing you're just more attuned to.
Yeah. I will say it's very interesting, and it definitely comes into play. So the books that she found, there was like the last the last speakings of Goodrell, and then the Song of Venda. And whenever you get those snippets, it's really interesting because you have to remember that she's from Morrigan, where first daughters are the only ones who have the gift. And she's now in Venda, where she's learning that's not really how it is, actually. So basically, that whole, essentially, I guess it kind of really is a religion, but it's, I guess more, I don't know. But you kind of are learning that that's not what's happening. And so, like, that whole thing is kind of fake. So what is happening? And that was, because Caden, I don't know if you guys noticed it either, but Caden also has a knowing. And he has said that, well, actually, I won't say it, but just in case that wasn't in this book, but he mentions a couple of times that he heard her name, but he didn't know her, like before he ever met Leah. And so that was pretty interesting too. Does he say that in the book, the first book?
Well, I didn't finish it, but I don't remember.
I think that he does once.
Yeah.
I think I highlighted it once. I didn't get to the end of skimming through my Kindle, but I highlighted it once. But he does say it more throughout the series, and it's kind of wild to see that actually unfurl too. So that's.
Can I say, you know how they give the snippets of the book, the writings or whatever? That made zero sense to me.
Yeah.
Like, what? This is just ramblings.
It kind of feels like ramblings. So essentially you're hearing the story of Morrigan as she's a little girl. So her grandmother is telling her the story. And
you're not even getting a story. It's just ramblings.
It is just bits and pieces. Yeah, and it doesn't really come together until you get further into the books. So I did feel like that as well. Whenever I was listening to it, I was like, I don't understand what we're talking about. But the further I got into the books, I was like, oh, holy cow. Like, wow. All right. Just kidding.
I feel like they should have like put some part in there in those ramblings that kind of like made you realize that this is actually going to be significant later. This is going to be a story or something like that. Because at this point, you could take all those out and that story still be fun.
It's in italics.
It's still...
But I mean, that's usually a signifying that, hey, there's something going on here.
Well, I don't know. I've read
italics.
books where people put like little poems at the beginning of a chapter or whatever. And the chapter, like that sort of. But like the little poem will like be about something. And then later on in that chapter, it kind of relates back to that poem. But the poems are not significant. It's just...
Yeah, it's like a theme sort of thing. It's like, this is the theme of the chapter.
Yeah.
Okay, we haven't talked about the most important part, I think, which is at the very end, right?
Oh, well,
which is this nonsense about her having a secret name and stuff. I say nonsense because it just came out of nowhere, right? At least for me.
I
mean... No, they've mentioned it.
She mentioned how that name was, her mom...
It was a non-traditional name.
Insisted on that. Yeah. And her dad didn't want her to have it.
Yeah.
But it's like some of this weird prophecy stuff. I'm wondering if her mom got it from the book or is trying to force a prophecy type thing. I will say that part right there is the main part that is interesting me somewhat about continuing the story. That being said, I'm not a big fan of the chosen one type stuff, right?
Yeah.
I get that.
Do you find out more about what's going on with her mom?
Yes.
Okay, because you can tell there's something that she's not telling.
Not in this book, you don't.
Well, yeah, you can't. Well, no, but I mean, you can tell there's something going on that you don't.
Yeah.
I thought you meant do you find out more in this book?
Oh, no.
I was
Just
just say
in
no.
the series.
No, you just find out that her mom is a dirty liar and also is maybe forcing a prophecy happening.
Oh, I don't know if it's so much forcing a prophecy because she had the gift of knowing. So maybe before she had her child, she had some premonition or something like that.
That's a good possibility. If you, because we know that she can use the gift. I'm wondering if they talked about her gift fading as time went along. I'm wondering if that actually happened or she just stopped, talking about it. Because I could see both ways, right? The old lady says if you don't use the gifts, you'll lose them, they'll rust, they'll go away or whatever. And then, she also might have just been suppressing it to help hide the fact from Leah that she has the powers, right? A little hard to tell at this point in the books.
Yeah, I can't speak on it.
There's more there. She's just not telling.
There's a whole lot more there.
I imagine there is. I think the issue is this particular book did not give
it's so
enough
vague
stuff
about it.
Yeah, it didn't give you enough stuff to really drag you into the next book, I don't think, personally. But I also don't think it was set up to do that. I think that it is the same sort of situation where it's like, oh, I already wrote both books. You have to chop them up,
Yeah, see, I agree with Zach. I don't think that it has enough to really make you be like, oh, I need the second book right now. Now, I probably will end up finish reading these, purely because the whole theme of my book challenge this year is finishing series that I've started. But it's still not something that I think I would jump to read the second book right now. I'm going to read a Garth Nix book first, and I'm going to read Tea and Treason, the third one. I finally got that, so I'm going to read that first. So
I would like to listen to them because it takes
don't listen at 2.5 speed.
No, that's a miserable experience. I've done that before. It's awful.
It takes me so long to read because I'm one of those every word readers, and I'm right there at the in the book.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, no, I get you. I'm a slow reader personally.
So I would like to listen to these because I don't have the time that I want.
The narrator and stuff is good. It's good.
Yeah.
There was one point of view that I didn't like the narrator for, but I don't remember which boy it was.
Yeah, I can't remember either.
I don't remember which one. It was either... I want to say it was Rafe's.
I think...
narrator that I did not like when they go to his point of view. I know that's not most of the book. Because most of it's from Leah's point of view, but... Yeah,
I'd say 90% of it is from her point of view.
I didn't like that narrator. I didn't like their voice.
I think you're right. I think it was Rafe.
Okay, so one question real quick. They kept talking about the Citadel. How is it spelled?
Citadel.
Okay, so it's spelled like Citadel. They kept calling it the Citadel. And I'm like, what is this weird pronunciation you guys are doing? Oh, the Citadel. Back in the
fancy.
Citadel.
Yeah.
And it wasn't just her who said it. It was the other narrator said it too. And I'm like, what is going on? Have I been pronouncing this word wrong my entire life and everybody else has been? No.
It just makes
the
it
readers
sound
are wrong.
Because fancier.
When I was in college, 100 years ago, no one could afford anything.
Roughly.
And, and there was a really cheap beer that some of the guys would drink. It was Goebel beer, but they called it Giobel.
To make it sound fancy?
Yeah.
I love it.
It was dirt cheap.
Giobel.
You could get a 6-pack for $2 or something. It was,
oh my gosh.
It's like how we say croissant and then...
That's a croissant.
Croissant. That's my favorite. I say that to my kids all the time. I'm like, oh, you want a croissant? And they're like, Mom, stop it. I'm like, whoa, oui.
Okay, so...
That was a nice aside. I loved that.
I guess also any final thoughts? I think I've gotten all my extra final thoughts that I keep having because
I don't have any more final thoughts.
I do want to finish this book. I will finish reading.
Yeah, it's not bad. It's a pretty good book. It's a nice little book. And if you just want to read something where you have the option to set down the book and read the rest of it later, this is a fine one for that.
And the female character is nice and strong. She's but she's still kind.
Yeah, she is kind. I like that a lot.
That's a good thing, yeah, because a lot of times when you get the strong female character, they'll be just kind of harsh and rude and stuff like that because of, whatever. But she's nice. She's just also kind of tough,
Yeah.
Yeah. And I like the fact that she didn't care to just jump in there and be like, this is what I'm doing now. I have a tavern maid.
Yeah.
And I'm like, all right, we like this.
Yeah. That was, she was totally written to be the opposite of what you would expect for a princess. And I loved that.
Yeah.
It's like when Terry Pratchett, in some of his books, like, if you can't be the princess, be the witch.
Yeah.
She's kind of like the princess witch.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I mean, she has that strength and that determination and that kindness and caring, but she's still a princess.
Mhm.
Yeah.
All right, Pixar, take note. This is how you do it. You don't do something like, was it Brave? What a miserable movie.
No,
I like Brave.
Merida was pretty good. Merida
Yeah.
was good.
Brave was awful. It was a bad
You're
book.
awful.
I mean, bad movie.
I don't know. I thought she was pretty spoiled. I mean, like, way.
She was young, though.
Yeah, she was young.
I mean, look at The Little Mermaid. She's freaking
just
threw
a wee
herself.
Bobby.
She,
Nah.
yeah. She threw herself over a rock and cried. I mean,
I wanted some epic story about her going on some dope quest and stuff, and it's a movie about bears, and it's dumb.
I thought the mom was the stronger character. I love the mom character.
The mom was pretty good. The mom was pretty good in that.
But I think there was a lot of like growing in that movie.
Yeah,
I think
There
that's what
was.
it mainly focused on was her growth.
Yeah. There could have been a better way to do it.
Yeah.
So what are our next books coming up?
So next week we are talking about A Woman of No Importance, which is my nonfiction, and that is by Sonia Purnell. Oh, I can't believe I remembered that.
A Woman of No Importance. Gotcha.
And then the week after that we have T.A. Spencer to discuss Steel Fated. And then the following week we are doing Ariel's Deep Dive, which is The Patient.
By Jasper DeWitt.
And then we're doing Your Ghost.
Yeah, and then my nonfiction after that is about ghosts. I cannot remember. I think it's like Chasing Ghosts is the title by Mark Hartzman, maybe? I don't know. I don't have that in front of me, so I'm not 100% sure. But if you have a good ghost story, you can definitely send us an email with it, and we will try to highlight some of those.
Mm-hmm.
Read it on the air.
Yeah, I
That'd
feel
be
like
cool.
we're pretty good at ghost stories.
Oh, I have
That would
plenty.
be fun. That would be fun to read other people's ghost stories too.
Yeah.
So speaking of all of our finding us on Facebook, you can also email us at
jcpl.social@gmail.com.
you can send us stories that way. You can find us on Facebook. Our Facebook page is just, you would type Jackson County Library WV on Facebook. And then we have a group on Facebook, and that one is the Reading Room Ruffians podcast.
Yeah, so if you just type in Reading Room Ruffians on Google even,
Mm-hmm.
our Facebook group is one of the first ones.
Perfect.
If not the first one. Because I did it the other day. And I was like, this is cool. And we also have a TikTok now and an Instagram we've had, but our handle for that is WVJCO Library.
Mm-hmm.
So WVJCO Library. So you can look us up on there. We have little snippets of our podcast on TikTok also. So that can be fun to see sometimes too.
Yeah, Ariel and I make some pretty good faces.
Yep. You
All
can
right.
see my croissant thing here.
Oh, man. I think that does it for us. Thanks for listening to the Reading Room Ruffians. If you want more library or podcast news, please follow us. And you can find our TikTok, which we've already mentioned. Share us with everybody you know who you think would love listening to us talk about books. All your book nerd friends. We love them just as much as we hope you love us. So remember, only the best libraries have librarians who do not shush you.